everybody, to our last episode of the day here on the Digital Trade Show podcast, where I have been live at the ADHA annual session in Columbus, Ohio. And I don't know how this happened, but our last episode is it's a perfect way to close out being here at the ADHA. With me to my left, your right, is Amber Auger from Boston, Massachusetts, and she has a company called Millennial Mentor that she is going to talk to us about today. We're actually going to talk to Amber about all kinds of things. I'm really, really excited because you are connected in a lot of ways in the industry. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, what a pleasure. So I'm going to frame it out like this because we were talking about this and it's very fascinating. As many of you know, when we talk about generations like the baby boomers and millennials and all that, there's this overgeneralization time to time of how do I work with a millennial or how do I connect? That's what Amber does, and she is going to talk about that today, so we're really excited. Before we get into that, let's learn a little bit about you, who you are and how you got to where you are sitting at this table and at this meeting.
Yeah, great. I would love to share. So the field of dental hygiene and the dental industry as a whole started for me in the 6th grade. So sitting in science class, we started learning about teeth, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to go to dental school. It's going to be amazing. And I grew up with a single mom. So when it came to applying for college and student loans, I didn't have a cosigner to become a dentist. So I decided to go to school for hygiene. And I actually fell in love with the hygiene profession, and I really realized that I was meant to be in the preventative side versus the restorative. And I love the connection that I can have with a patient and change habits that are going to prevent the progression of disease and prevent disease overall. Mm-hmm. It's a very unique field. I absolutely love it. And from that, I actually stemmed getting a master's in public health. I had practiced for about 3 years and knew I wanted to do something kind of out of the op as well. I still practice 2 days a week. And I decided to go for my master's in public health. Then from there, I kind of fell into speaking. I went to a conference and I said, I think I could do this. And there needs to be some younger people up here. And I'm hearing all this negative things about millennials, and not every millennial wants everything handed to them. So let's change the game here. So that's when I created the Millennial Mentor Company, and here we are.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about where that takes you. I mean, certainly, I think in itself, at first when people hear about that, they have to be, wow, and how cool that you actually had the thought to put that together. But more importantly, isolate it with something that people know that they want to learn more about. And I would imagine that's kind of what you get when you share people what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in regards to the industry, when we talk about the dental industry as a whole, we have a new wave of hygienists coming in. So if we don't figure out how to effectively work with the millennial population, we're not going to be successful in our general overall mission of progressing our field. And I feel that there's a lot of, when you work with multi-generations, you need to learn how to effectively come in and collaborate based on years of experience versus newbies. And millennials as a whole, I find that they're the only generation that carries such a negative connotation, that they want things and their hands are out and they're not hard workers. But we have to remember that we can't judge an entire population on one interaction that we've had with someone.
Absolutely.
And I should say a whole age group, if you will.
Sure.
So when it comes to millennials and working with teams, I help teams understand, okay, here's the perspective. When you act this way, it may portray you that you want something handed to you. Did you ever think of that? Sure. And, of course, the team member's like, oh, no, I didn't realize that. Or, hey, where's the emotional IQ here? Did you realize the way you said that with a lot of attitude? And we want to work as a team. So once we can figure out how to optimize each other, we're going to go so much further.
Absolutely.
So much further.
Yeah, and I think every generation, I mean, when you go back over time, you always hear that popular story that was, well, when I was your age, I had to hike to school 3 miles in snow with no shoes. I mean, that's probably been going on for a while.
Yes.
It just seems to me, Amber, like everything obviously now is more magnified.
It is.
That somebody that fits within a generation, and it's a shame that we focus on, to your point, I'm glad you bring it about, and obviously you're an advocate for this, is that we focus on that negative instead of trying to look at the why and trying to understand why that individual may say that, do that, feel that, what have you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So talk about on the other side of it in regards to when you work with, whether it be companies or practices, when you're trying to educate those that have been around for a while on the millennials and how they can do things to communicate better with them.
Yeah. It's a great question. So for me, when I grew up, I consider myself an old soul millennial, where since the age of 13, I've really been on my own. I didn't have help with college or even applying for school or moving into school. So I feel that I have that kind of sweat equity, more of an old school type feel. But if you look at my age, I am a millennial.
Right.
So I feel like I have this unique ability to connect with both sides of, whether you're a baby boomer or you've been in the industry for a long time versus if you're just a new graduate.
Right.
So I shouldn't say just a new graduate, but if you've newly graduated.
Sure.
So what I love to do is to be able to bridge that gap. And did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
I kind of have like trade show brain a little bit.
No. I mean,
I've been talking all day.
No, but I'm glad you said that, because I think that's really, I don't want to say it's all that it is, because it's massively important, but that's really what it is it's having somebody in the middle that can bridge that gap, that can have a conversation, who understands it. But by the other side of it, I'm glad you bring up the whole aspect of the old soul, because maybe someone who's been around for a while would say, okay, well, why would I listen to Amber?
Right.
How does Amber understand me? Well, the fact of the matter is you have taken the time somehow, some way, to understand that other side of the fence, and there's merit and trust and credibility in that.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, and absolutely, and it all comes down to really communication styles as well. Because if you look at it, whether it's sales or education, it all comes back to how the patient or the person that is receiving your message received it.
Sure.
And they may receive it wrong because of your tone, or you may have said something that's completely inappropriate, and that wasn't your intention. Right. But if you can come down and say, okay, why was this message received wrong? How can we change our marketing from a consumer standpoint to help build and refreshen our brand?
Right.
How can we increase our numbers with the ADHA? How can we make new members feel welcome? How can we increase the trade show numbers? All of that comes back to how somebody felt when they were at your event, how they were received, what their experience was.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so here's two questions that I'm excited to ask you. The first is, let's talk about why some of the millennials do what they do and why they are who they are from your experience.
Yeah. So from my experience, it's simply that no one has taught them a different way, or they haven't been able to take a step back and say, well, I'm feeling this way. There's not an emotional awareness. So we tend to, as a society, we're very emotionally connected to things. The emotional IQ in great commercials like the Crest commercial that was shown this morning, where you're showing the hygienist making a connection to the patient, right? We're all involved. But we're so connected on social media that we don't understand the importance of the connection face to face. So that's where we're really, I think, that's the downside of our industry and why we're seeing lower numbers at trade shows and lower numbers with the different associations, is because we feel that we can belong just by being on social, and we can be a part of these great groups, which is wonderful, but there's such an importance to the face-to-face connection.
Sure.
When you look at millennials, I think that's what they're really missing, because they're so connected on social but disconnected in person.
Sure.
And there's so many, what's really interesting is I've met so many people that I've followed on social media who, when I see them online, I'm like, wow, they must be such an extrovert. Yeah. And I see them and they come up and they're like, hi, can I talk to you? And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I've seen what you've done here and there. And, they're like, oh, I'm a little shy. And I'm like, I'm getting that. That's okay. Come on over. And, that's what I love to do. I love to make people feel comfortable and to say, let's work together. Let's charge in the same direction, no matter what age group you're in, no matter what your background is in. So I think when it comes to the millennial, I think they're misunderstood that. And I'll be frank, I think some parents of millennials have given them too much.
Sure.
And they haven't let them work.
Sure.
And, they don't necessarily know the value of $1.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot. And it's my mission to say, hey, if you've had that, that's okay. But recognize how unique that is.
Sure.
And how can you then carry that forward and give it back to somebody else, whether they're in your generation or not. And that's really my mission as a whole.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so interesting you say that, because it seems to be, is it really the millennials' fault to your point. I mean, as we have progressed and if we have created things and it's just been the natural progression of our society, you just happen to be alive at a time when these things existed.
Right.
You just happen to be alive at a time when you were fortunate enough, as many people, as we know, you do a lot of mission work in our world, are not fortunate enough to have a lot of the things, especially we have in this country.
Right.
You know, I had a guest on yesterday where she does a lot of mission work and she talks about going down to Haiti and and talking about, you know, just lines of people waiting to get dental care and good that we don't have to worry about a lot of that in this country. But that's the other side of it. And so it's very difficult to fault a whole generation of people when they're saying, listen, I mean, you wanted me to have a good life. You wanted things to be good for me. You didn't want me to have to suffer.
Right.
It's the parent's dilemma. It's
Absolutely.
not easy. It's not
Absolutely. And you know what's difficult is that there's so many people who are quick to judge the millennial, but who's taking the time to teach the millennial?
Absolutely.
And saying, hey, have you ever thought that when you say it this way, you're perceived this way? Or have you ever thought about the other side? And millennials are very unique in that we love to give back. We love to be a part of a greater organization. And we simply want to feel heard, and they value that a lot more. And I think other generations have valued the work-life balance, but millennials are more vocal about what they value.
Absolutely.
So then they become perceived as, you know, divas, or they don't want to work hard, you know. And when we go on mission trips, there's times where I'm seeing patients who are at the front of the line and, you know, they're hugging me, and it's a total body, for me to go on a mission trip, it's a total body reset, because these people are so grateful that we're there, we're giving back, and it reminds me that it's not always keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
And when we're there, you're right. There'll be people that are right at the front door, and I said, oh, okay, what time did you get here? And they're like, oh, yeah, we got here at midnight last night. And here it is 9 a.m., and they've been waiting for us the whole time.
Right.
And, you know, we've commuted, 2 hours through the tundra, and we'll stay there till we're done.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's midnight or, we'll stay until every person is treated.
Taken care of.
Yes.
You know, there's something we do in this country where we camp out at midnight. You know what it is?
Black Friday.
For the new iPhone.
Yeah, not as fun in my opinion.
All right, so that's the first question. So here's the other side now. So in your experience, when you're working with some of the older generations and you're trying to bridge that gap, when they share, what is their why? Like why do they get frustrated? Like, what do they want? What do they want from the millennials? Like, what do they want them to understand so that their walls come down, they're a little bit more apt to want to make that connection and then work together?
So I think the most important thing with working as a millennial is figuring out the heart of the millennial versus the heart of whoever else that person is working with. And as millennials, we tend to say, well, we tend to question the structure that is there. Well, why are we doing it this way? Is it really this effective? Can we do it quicker, faster, and in better quality?
Right.
And when a millennial can say, hey, look, this is what I'm looking to achieve, help me do that. Let's collaborate. There's so much to be said. I have great mentors who could be, some of them could be my grandparents, and I love working with them because they have the experience, and they love working with me because I can say, okay, have you thought about changing it this way? This will be more effective for your brand. And they say, oh, no, I didn't. So if we can come together that way, the biggest thing is learning the heart of that other member of the generation. Because millennials tend to wear our hearts on our sleeves.
Sure.
Yeah, and we love to talk about ourselves, but who doesn't?
Right.
Who doesn't? Yeah. And it's just that there's a bad rap. There's a negative connotation that comes before the millennial even walks into the room.
So it sounds like, from your perspective, it's, if I'm a 57-year-old business owner and I'm struggling a little bit in my business, and I intuitively know that I could lean on somebody younger that's coming in, just making that environment available, right? Is that kind of what you would say?
It's exactly
is just
what it is.
Literally raising your hand and saying, you know what? I've done a lot. I can help you. It sounds like you have a lot of cool ideas. Let's talk together. I would think that alone would help move things forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have certifications in HR as well as the Drake personality assessment. So I can come in from a backside and say, okay, no matter what your generation is, if you're an introvert and someone's coming at you and they're a huge extrovert and they're saying it this way, that's draining your energy. Let's figure out how to communicate better. Is your style better for me to send you an email versus send you a text?
Right.
Do you feel disrespected when you get a text, or do you prefer? What do you prefer?
Right.
And I work with a lot of multi-general general dental offices specifically, and there's instances where a doctor is sending out an email at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And Monday morning, my office manager will come in, and he'll be peeved. He'll be like, "How come you didn't answer that email?" She's like, "Doc, I wasn't on the clock.
Right.
It's Monday morning. I'm 15 minutes before I'm on the clock right now.
Right.
At 8 a.m., I will open that email."
Sure.
So it's figuring out those boundaries from all perspectives, no matter what generation you are, and how to work better as a team, as a unit.
Right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the actual dental practice. And let's talk about case acceptance and a dentist or a hygienist that has been practicing, let's say, 18, 19 years, and a 24-year-old millennial comes in and they need to get some work done. Talk a little bit about how that dental team should approach wanting to move that patient from not getting the work done to getting it done.
Absolutely. So it's all about the evidence that you can provide the millennial, because the way that the market is, there's so many options for us now, and there's so much information that's available online. So often when I'm talking to millennials, I'll say, you need scaling of your planning treatment. You have disease in your gums, but do not Google this. I don't want you to Google it on YouTube and see this extensive, severe case that you don't have. We're preventing this before it's going to progress. So it's important to show the scientific information to the millennial and really be building the value, picking up the intraoral camera and making sure you're making that connection, taking your mask off, sitting the patient up, giving them eye contact, saying, what is it? How can we help your compliance with this recommendation? Because convenience is compliance. How can we make it easier for you to come back in? Is it getting a late hour appointment? What are you concerned about? Here's the procedure. What else do you need from me to say yes to the treatment? This is why you need it. I'm concerned about your overall health. Let me help you fix this. What do you need to say yes?
Sure.
And oftentimes, it's fear. It's fear of the unknown, and they don't, maybe of cost, maybe of time. So we have to figure that out. You have to ask them the right questions to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. And I think, again, it's just another example of their, as a millennial, you're foreshadowing like this. I will follow through with your recommendation. Just please provide me this information. Right.
And how are you saying it? Are you making the person feel judged? Because I never want to judge my patients at all. I want them to feel comfortable, no matter what age they are.
Sure.
And I think millennials are definitely more aware of that. We're more aware of that. We're more emotionally in tune. So someone says to you, well, clearly you haven't been flossing, Some people might take that differently.
Sure.
So for me, I said, well, it looks like you haven't been flossing, doesn't make you a bad person, but here's why you need to floss.
Yeah.
Let me help you figure out, what do you not like about what you're using for floss? Is it an area that it's hard to reach? How can I help solve the problem? Instead of focusing on the problem, how do I solve it?
Yep. It's a new way to communicate.
It is,
yes. And we've been doing it for centuries. Right?
Yes.
I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, we're only 200 years old here in this country, which, you really think about it, it's... we're very young in relation to a lot of things. So, so you're out there, you're seeing a lot. Your hands are in all kinds of things, making a positive impact in the industry. What is one thing that you're really excited about right now?
One thing that I am extremely excited about is teledentistry. I think it's going to change the way that dentistry is viewed overall from the consumer standpoint, as well as help capture so many patients that aren't being served. I do a little bit of teledentistry. I do it in Boston with a corporate company, and that corporate company, I go in and I work out of their boardroom. And these are patients who actually have had insurance for 5 or 6 years, who are making 6 figures, who are very well off, but haven't been to the dentist in 5 or 6 years, and they don't value it. So I can really make a huge impact there, and there's so many opportunities as a hygienist and for our market where we can really serve our patients better.
And I would imagine as time goes on, that's a great example of using technology to be able to communicate.
Yes.
And to your point, as long as the professionals, the providers, the dentists, hygienists that are on the other side of the camera making the recommendation, but it's the same thing, to your point, they have to understand that if a good portion of their patient population are millennials, regardless of whether it's teledentistry or in person, they've got to be able to figure out how to communicate.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So where do you see this in like 5 years with teledentistry? I mean, give me a picture of more and more hygienists doing it, dentists.
I see more and more hygienists doing it. Depending on the state, there needs to be a dentist who's supervising. So in the state of Massachusetts, how I do it is the dentist is not with me throughout the day, but at lunchtime they're reviewing all of my my radiographs and my intraoral photos, and they're confirming to the patient if they need the treatment that I've said, hey, the doctor's going to look at these areas. Yes, you need to treat this now. We could wait on this.
Right.
And then the receptionist is calling and having it scheduled. It's a very fluid system. It's wonderful. It's very easy to replicate. There's so many great softwares out there that can help start from the ground up. And I see this going into schools. I see this going into hospitals. I see this becoming even a more effective way for referrals of those patients who are constantly checking in and saying it's been another 6 months, your wisdom teeth are still here, or you still haven't gone for that implant consult, where we could actually do a live consultation right on, right where the patient's in our chair.
Yeah.
And dial up our specialists and say, hey, can you take a look at this? Hey, do you want to see this patient tomorrow or next week? Or what do we need so that we can prevent the patient from having to do 2 or 3 appointments? If we can do the consultation now, that means they don't have to take time off of work, increases their case acceptance, improves the ability for you to market your office as one that's very effective and communicates well with multi-specialty practices.
No, I love it. And I think it's very exciting, and it's really cool that you're kind of on the forefront of this, and I'm excited to see where you take it.
I'm excited to take it to great places.
Good stuff.
Of course, with the help of my team.
Of course. So real quick, I've got some fun questions to ask you as we close out. But if you can, let everybody know, how do they find out about you? What's a good place to learn about the great stuff you're doing? And floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So the best way to reach me is through amberauger.com, as well as I'm on Instagram, Amber Auger RDH, very unique name. And then I also am on Facebook, and of course I do a ton of work with great publishers over at Penwell with RDH Magazine. So I do a live series every week called Ask Amber RDH, where hygienists write in, and it's more peer-to-peer learning. And it's absolutely a fantastic time. I love doing it every week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, please be sure to learn more about Amber and all the great things that she's doing. Okay, so some fun questions for you.
Yes.
If there was a song that best described Amber, what would it be?
I don't know. Well, it would definitely have to be some sort of remix song.
Okay.
Fun fact is I actually am a spin instructor.
Okay.
So while I was in my school for my master's, I taught 6 spin classes a week. I don't get to do that as much now.
Okay.
But I really love like a Avicii mix.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, high energy. Yeah. With a slow build up to a great bass hit. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
That would
Something
describe.
You can just bob your neck to.
So I'm thinking some EDM is what I'm thinking.
Sure, yeah. Put that in the mix. Yeah.
I love it. All right, so let's see. How do I transition to the next question?
I don't know. That's a hard one.
How about your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich? Oh, well, I really do love prosciutto and cheese, like a nice panini.
Okay.
Yep.
Good panini.
Panini,
all right.
Yep. Prosciutto and cheese.
How about a place in the world that you cannot wait to visit?
Have I been there before?
Nope, never been there before.
Santorini. Absolutely.
Santorini? Mm-hmm. Okay. And how about favorite day of the week?
I really love Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. My clinical days are Monday, Tuesday, and they're both 12-hour days. So when I wake up on Wednesday, I'm like, I'm free. Yeah. Free falling. No, I'm at the gym in the morning.
Tuesday night is like your Friday night.
Well, I do work from home on Wednesday through Friday. Yeah. But I do,
Gotcha.
A little bit, yeah.
I always think about that. Like people that have different schedules.
Yes.
I mean, Friday is always Friday on the calendar, but you know what I mean? Like if you're someone that consistently works a schedule and Wednesday's your day off, then I always wonder, like, is Tuesday your Friday?
Yeah. So Wednesday's typically like my conference day where I'm catching up with all my clients.
So you still got a lot going on.
Still got a lot going on, but in the morning, I make it a point to be hitting the gym or do something to reprieve from the 24 hours of patient care.
Got it. Okay. So as we depart here, I've been asking everybody about their experience at this conference, and this is a great way to close it. How many times have you been to this conference, ADHA?
So I've been to the ADH conference 5 times.
5 times.
Five
okay.
times. Mm-hmm.
So, from a millennial's perspective, talk about what this means for a lot of the younger hygienists and why they need to be here.
Yeah.
And why they need to be a part of it.
So why Why I joined my association was because I had a mentor who said, you absolutely have to be here. And if it wasn't through the connections that I've made, there's no way that I could have accomplished what I've accomplished in such a short period of time. I mean, the jobs that I have, the roles that I have are better than I could have ever dreamt of, ever. I never thought that I would be able to travel and to get paid to travel, get paid to talk to friends and to educate other hygienists behind a booth. I feel so fortunate and so blessed, and a lot of those connections came from becoming an active member of the ADHA. The friends that I see here are my best friends. They're my road friends, and I will say most of my best friends are in their 50s, and I love it. And this is my family.
Yeah.
I see these people more than I see my family in Maine. And the reason to be involved is simply because of that. If we're going to progress and we're going to make a difference and impact patients and continue to grow as a profession and continue to expand into great things like teledentistry and really optimize technology, that comes with a network of people, and that comes getting all on the same page. I never wanted to be a hygienist that was, looking down and saying, did I floss that patient? Did I do this already? But to stay present, to stay active, to continue to learn so I can better serve my patients and identify disease early. And that's really why the ADHA is important to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This is such a great way to close it, and really nothing left to say after that. And want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for
and
having me. It's
very
been awesome.
Excited. It's been a lot of fun, and to learn and watch all the great things that you're going to do to make the industry better. So enjoy the rest of your weekend,
Thank
and I'm
you.
sure we will see you around.
Wonderful. Thank you
All right.
again.
Thanks, Amber.